Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy Bass the Kid. Now I've got to apologise, this one is running a little late. I have been otherwise indisposed since the time of the fight yesterday. I've only got into my house not long ago, and then Arsenal Man United was on. Had to check that out before doing anything to do with boxing. Wasn't the result I wanted, but it was a good game, and ultimately I guess the right team did win in the end. So yeah, congrats to any Arsenal fans watching. Anyway, that being said, normally you get weekend wraps on a Sunday, but one event, couple fights, decent fights, but one major talking point, and there's a couple other little bits and pieces that I want to address. So without further ado, we've got an episode of the Hardcore Casual. We're going to get started right now. So just before we get into this weekend's action, right, I just want to mention the fact that DAZN has now struck a partnership with Prime Video, aka Amazon Prime. And as far as I'm aware, this is a global strategy which will take place in most of their major territories, starting I think in Italy, and then I believe it will be moving from sort of Italy to like sort of Spain, Portugal, and then it will end up in the UK, Canada, Australia and the US. Now, quite frankly, this is a tremendous move from DAZN, especially, after not getting the BT Sport acquisition and everything like that. Look, Prime is one of the biggest streaming services globally. And that's the key point there, globally. Just like DAZN's a global platform, Prime's a global platform, but Prime is in a lot more households. A lot of people have Amazon Prime subscriptions simply for the next day delivery when purchasing stuff, purchasing your gifts, your everyday house tools, even the shit you don't need just because you can, and yeah, getting it next day or sometimes even the same day you buy it. So that's the reason I ended up getting it. And then it was a bonus that I had TV content, film content, and access to obviously other channels if I bought that through my subscription. Same principle here with DAZN. You see that on the main page. If you know about it, you're like, okay, I can buy it through there and get my subscription signed up, all good stuff. And then if you didn't know about it, you might look at it looks like it's a sports app. Okay, I like sports, let me see what they got on there. You see what's on there. Oh, okay, maybe this is something for me to have a look at. So it definitely is a benefit. I don't know the exact number of how many people have Prime globally, but I would assume it would be at least 500 million. I don't think that's an outlandish number. Out of what, 8 billion people in the world, 500 million as a ballpark to have Prime sort of globally. And then DAZN, you give them 10% of that, 50 mil reach, 1% even, an extra 500,000 people. To me, it seems like a no-brainer, and it's a great move. So yeah, clear to see they're making the right moves now. Hopefully that translates into more revenue for them, which therefore equals better matchups or more money thrown into various productions for us outside of Misfits and all that other stuff there, and all the other sports rights they've got globally around the world. Just looking from a UK perspective. But yeah, definitely a good move, and I'm sort of keen to see how that partnership blossoms over the next coming year or so. Anyway, it's enough of that. I don't think there was anything else I wanted to talk about specifically. There might have been, but that's cool. We can get to the weekend stuff because that's where the meat and potatoes is of this video. So doing a wrap of the weekend, I'm going to try and do this one quickly because I'm probably going to have a bit more outlandish takes to lace through the rest of the week. There will be talking points galore. Let's talk about the undercard. So I got home and the first fight I was able to see was Joseph Parker and Jack Massey, and I saw that from the end of the second round, and then so I saw it from the third round onwards. And from what I saw, first half of the fight, Joseph Parker looked pretty good in terms of, you know, stalking his opponent, trying to sort of land the one big shot here or there. It was stabbing to the body, but Jack Massey was moving about sort of quite, I wouldn't say excessively, but it was there was a lot more movement than I thought. I thought he would try and sort of hit and move a lot more in the first few rounds and then try to step on the gas a bit later on. Instead of that, he would get into the clinch. He would try and, you know, lean on Parker, which was a bit of a crazy move because Parker's the heavier guy, so quite often Parker would be walking him back or Parker would be pushing him back towards the ropes. And, you know, to credit to Jack Massey, he took some big shots. They may not have been the hardest, but he did take a couple of big ones, and you could see by his face at the end of the fight that those punches were landing and were having some significant damage. However, he came back into the fight a bit better towards the end, sort of rounds 6, 7, 8 he did pretty well, and then maybe rounds 9 and 10 he had a bit of a salvo in each one, but I felt like, you know, sort of Parker pretty much did the better work overall. But Joseph Parker didn't look that great in this fight. I don't think the scorecards were truly reflective of the fight. There was a 96-93, which meant that, you know, someone gave Jack Massey 4 rounds of the fight. Now, I mean, I didn't see the first 2, but most people said that Parker won those. So from what I saw, to be honest, I just about gave Jack Massey 1 round, and that was just off of cleaner work and maybe a couple of additional punches landed than in the previous rounds. Every other round, I think he was either outlanded or out hurt by Parker. Maximum I could have maybe swung to him was 2 rounds. So yeah, to see sort of 3s and 4s was a bit of a shock, but okay. But either way, yeah, I was expecting Joseph Parker to get the knockout. It didn't happen. He's rebounded now off of the Joe Joyce loss, you know, got another 10 rounds in the bank, so maybe I gotta kind of let him off the hook on this one, see what happens in the next fight. But it wasn't impressive, and he's definitely got to move better than that if he wants to maintain that top 10 ranking that he's currently got. Moving on to Ekow Essuman and Chris Kongo, and I ended up getting this prediction wrong. I thought that Kongo would keep their height and reach distance and advantage to Ekow Essuman. Essuman looked a bit drawn on the scales. He didn't necessarily look the best I've seen him, so I thought that he might lose pressure sort of, you know, down the back end and the back stretch of the fight. The whole first half of the fight played out exactly as I had sort of predicted, that, you know, Kongo would, you know, take that half step back, hit him with a straight right if he tries to close the distance, you know, sort of aggressively keep him on the end of the jab, try and keep his height advantage rather than sort of bending down to the waist. But credit to Ekow Essuman, because I said that he would get in there and he would make Chris have to work when Chris didn't want to work, if Chris wasn't able to sort of land something strong or keep him, you know, just kind of keep him honest. And ultimately, Chris's main weakness was, rather than pivoting off after landing the jab or sort of landing a straight right, or, you know, hooking off the ropes, he would quite frequently get moved back to the ropes and then not adjust. He would turn his body angular so that he's maybe got one of his shoulders on the ropes, but rather than spin off of the ropes and keep that distance and keep that jab and that backhand in Essuman's face, he was just staying on the ropes, allowing Essuman to work. Whether a lot of the shots were getting through or not, you're getting pinned back. Like, it's probably still draining you because you're now having to fight someone off rather than, you know, keeping the pace at your level. And ultimately, he just got outworked towards the end of the fight. And in 2 rounds, he took some really strong punches. I think one of them was the 8th or the 9th round. I could be wrong, it could even have been the 10th. And then in the 12th round as well, he was winning the 12th, but then got caught with a really big shot, which basically changed the tide of that whole round. And you just kind of gave it to Essuman because he did the more sort of, I guess, the clear-cut work in that particular moment. And I said at the end of the fight, I think it could be a draw. One of the judges had it as a draw, so they kind of saw it the way I saw it. But, you know, when I was responding to people online, I said, like, I mean, I hope, Chris could maybe get it, because obviously I predicted for him and he lives not that far from me. But outside of that, I think Essuman did enough. I said I think Chris will be lucky to get away with a draw ultimately. You know, he didn't rip it away from the champion, even though he was on home turf. So now we're just wondering, well, what does he do next? Where does he go? That's going to be the interesting question. But congrats to Ekow Essuman. Goes back to Queensbury, goes back to BT Sport. Won the Commonwealth and the British Championship outright. He's pretty much done everything at that particular level. Maybe now it is time to try and move up to that European and see if you can do anything there. Or if you just want to reign domestically, hey, I mean, you're 33. Why not if you're getting decent enough money to do so? Congrats to you. Commiserations to Chris. Second loss, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing, but he doesn't have the greatest trajectory now. So what does he do next? It also is a big indicator that maybe 147 is not the right division for him, because he's never really taken the best punch at 147. You know, he's tall, he's like 6 foot, maybe 6'1", 147 pounds. Maybe it's time to go to super welter or light middle, that 154. Maybe that's where you're gonna find that power and be able to, you know, compete a bit more, because maybe he's just a bit drained at 147. Who knows? But yeah, we'll see what happens with them moving forward. Richard Riakporhe versus Kryzstof Glowacki. Now, I thought this would go a bit later than it did. I was predicting Riakporhe to kind of get him out within sort of like round 8. I was thinking sort of 8, 9. I knew he would get the knockout, but I thought Glowacki would be a lot trickier than he was initially. Now, I actually ran out to go and get some petrol to the car, so I missed the first couple of rounds. I only saw rounds 3 and 4, where it looked like, from what I saw, Glowacki was being a bit tricky. But whereas Riakporhe used to be sort of very, you know, sort of hesitant and quick on the draw to try and keep someone off him, and maybe even a bit panicky, he looked very composed from what I saw. I liked the movement, I liked the setups that he was doing. He didn't panic when he was getting sort of hit by that, you know, that southpaw jab, which was coming over the top of his at times. He stayed tucked up, he stayed composed, he was working the body. Headshots were working. He wasn't trying to throw the backhand from far out and overreach. He was always in range. I thought that was really good, solid work. The only issue I have, and it's an issue that maybe prevented ultimate disaster, but Howard Foster, yet again, just being too eager to jump in. There was about 8 seconds left of the round. Glowacki only got hit with 1 shot in a salvo of about 6 at that time. He blocked the rest. He was, you know, covering up, trying to survive, and then Howard Foster's just looking for any moment to jump in, which he does all the time. It's very frustrating. I don't know why he's still an A-star referee. Like, can we please get some fresh blood in the game, because he's just a person to me that ruins these fights, and it robbed the you know, the paying public and also the public in attendance of a potential highlight reel knockout. At this point, I mean, Glowacki wasn't out on his feet wobbling all over the place. He just took 1 or 2 shots that were quite big, but he seemed to still be fairly composed. Let him go out on his shield. That's my opinion on it. You lot can say what you want to say in the comments, that's cool, but that's how I feel about it. Like, I really just can't stand when he does that. Anyway, that's enough for the undercard. Now I guess we're going to get to the real meat of what this video will be about. To say that what happened yesterday was a shock is an understatement. Not necessarily the fact that Liam Smith won. Like, I think a lot of people picked him to win, and I was contemplating changing my pick to Smith on points, just because with the extra £6 to play with, he would definitely have better reserves towards the back end of the fight. So it would literally all have been about what Chris Eubank did during the first half. If he swept sort of the first half, then he probably wins the fight on points, which is what I thought would happen, because he might nick one of the later rounds. But if the first half was kind of nip and tuck sort of for the first 5-6 rounds, then Eubank would definitely slow down towards the back half, and that's where Liam Smith will start to work, if he didn't already like taste the power and get flattened, which I never predicted would happen. But to see that Chris Eubank Jr. got stopped in the 4th was a shock among all shocks. That has to be one of the biggest shocks in recent history. If you just look at, you know, the chin, because we always talk about the chin. There's 3 people that you used to talk about in terms of chins in this modern era, and that was Golovkin, Joe Joyce, and Chris Eubank. Possibly even Canelo as well, to be fair. But those are the people that you always said had granite chins, and you didn't really see them getting knocked out. No one has done to Chris Eubank Jr. what Liam Smith did, and Chris has fought much bigger punchers at much bigger weights. George Groves, I would guess, hits twice as hard as Liam Smith, and he barely put a dent in Chris Eubank, apart from obviously the big cut that he had over his eye. Arthur Abraham was a fairly noted big puncher as well, you know. So Chris has taken shots from much bigger people, and yeah, none of them have ever folded him the way that was. Now look, the elephant in the room we've got to address. This is taking nothing away from Liam Smith's performance, because clearly he wanted that fight long before the Conor Benn thing happened. But we had that Conor Benn, the 157, you know, 60% and all of that stuff. Then you don't even really come off the training camp for that realistically. You go straight into another hard weight cut. Now the thing is, I actually thought he looked very good on the scales. I didn't think he looked dry like some other people did. He didn't look sunken, he didn't look gaunt. So his body looked like he was in fairly decent condition, but I think the damage was done from the previous weight cut, where the nutrients just weren't there, and then putting your body back into that, he just looked like he may have been in a weakened state. A few people mentioned, like Danny from Fight Fan TV mentioned, that, you know, his legs looked a little skinnier than normal. Now I looked at his legs and I thought, yeah, they don't look like mad muscular, they don't look big, but I didn't really think they looked skinny either. I thought, you know, they were kind of in proportion with the rest of his body, because most people don't have legs that look as big as their arms or as big as their chest, like just the way it is. But he was moving very, even though he was controlling the fight first 3 rounds, there was something labored about his style. It didn't look like he was really like his feet were always under him. It didn't look like he had a great solid base. He was moving a little bit lethargically. Even when he was kind of throwing those uppercuts in the 3rd round, you know, there was only one of them that looked like it had some real snap on it. The others just looked a bit forced. There's a lot of his punches outside of the jab were just looking a bit forced. But the gas tank looked, I said on Twitter, you know, the movement he's doing at this moment, by not sticking his feet straight down and just sort of punching through the target with the jab, could cause him problems towards the back half of the fight if he has to keep moving. And yeah, we saw within the 4th round, bang. Now there was 2 illegal shots. There was actually, to be honest, there may have been a couple extras. I saw there was a couple times Liam Smith went to hit him towards the back of the head in a clinch, and the ref didn't say anything. Who was it? It was Victor Loughlin, I think. But the salvo that put him down the first time, there was a shot where Liam Smith went to throw the hook, but he threw it at such a trajectory that if Chris Eubank ducked forward, which he did, the padding part of the glove that's obviously taped up would catch him, and it looks like that caught him, and that's kind of wobbled his legs. Then he takes several other shots. He takes I think it was a straight right and then a left hook, which is what done the damage to the eye. And as he's going down, Eubank Jr. gets hit right here, right at the back. It was like the base of the head at the top, just behind, like it was literally the back of the head. He gets hit with a shot on the way down, and I think that's the shot that basically like took his legs from him, because when he got up, like the legs were like jelly, and I think it was that shot. All the others, like none of those hit him in the chin to knock his equilibrium. So I don't think those were the reason his legs did that dance. I think it was literally that last shot, which a lot of people missed. Again, he got up, warrior style, came out, you know, got floored again, and then the ref just waved it off. But he was still ready to fight. He still ran out trying to fight again. So I'll give him props on the fact that he weren't quitting. But it's got to be, it has to be a little embarrassing, because that's another guy from a lower weight division that you've now called up and you couldn't get the job done. And this is like technically you could say it's maybe the 4th step up, because the Gale was a step up, even though he was just a washed version of himself. But you know, on the 4 step ups and you've only succeeded in 1, and not against anyone in their prime, it's looking bad. So we don't know what's going to happen with the career now. He says he wants the rematch. If he has a rematch maybe in like September, yeah, maybe August, September, when it's still a bit warm and you can have the outdoor stadium, maybe at that point you've got enough time to get your body back right and to be able to make that weight cut safely back to 160. But outside of that, it might be time, if you're going to carry on fighting, move back up to 168. Even if you want to bring 160 guys up to 168 to fight you, like, I think that might be the move, because the punch resistance may not be there now at 160, especially, and it's all down to that 157 weight cut. And I said on Monday Night Smoke back middle of last year, where I think it was May, June sort of times, long before we heard about Conor Benn and Chris Eubank actually having that fight signed, I told Tony, I told everyone, if Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn fight at a catch weight, that fight is more than likely going to be won by Conor Benn, because Chris Eubank Jr. getting down to those weights, what's it going to do to him? I was told, nah, you're crazy, he's just a naturally bigger guy, that won't ever happen, like he's just too big for Conor. Well, look, he was supposed to be too big for Liam Smith, and we see what the effects of those weight cuts did. So yet again, I say something, people want to act like man's mad, man's delusional. Give it time, it comes to pass. I'm gonna take my victories any and every time I get them. That being said, I'm gonna leave it there, because yeah, it's running a bit long. I'm gonna have to change my routine about a bit this week. There's a few bits and pieces that might have to change and reorganize, so we'll see where we get to. But thank you for watching. Leave your comments down below, let me know what you thought of this weekend's action and the DAZN Amazon Prime deal. And yeah, without no further ado, Hardcore Casual out.